I was working with a group recently to revamp their report, and they showed me lots of pages and lots of graphs that they'd already been working on. And then they pulled up this draft, the page of pies. And it wasn't just one page of pies, it was a page front and back for all 80 schools in their district. So we're talking a lot of pie charts. Now, this isn't their exact data set. Of course, I made up an entirely fictional data set behind the scenes to use for us today for this training, but you get the idea. The page of pies. What are we going to do about this? This is actually a really common challenge that I run into. I see some version of the page of pies probably every single week across all different workplaces, across all different topic areas. So let's tackle it. Let's talk about it. I feel like it's a very beginner level skill to say, "Oh, just don't use them, man. That's the solution. Just throw them away. Throw them in the garbage. Start from scratch." I mean, kind of, that's like half true, half true. Another beginner level situation is that people use pies for everything. It's when we haven't been exposed to much beyond pies and bars, we just use pies and bars. So it's not that you're always going to use pies, but it's not that you're never going to use pies. They do have certain uses that can be really helpful. The more advanced skill set is, what do you do instead? You're not going to use a whole page of pies. I think that's pretty obvious. There is a lot going on. There's a lot of eye zigzagging back and forth to make accurate comparisons. But you can't just toss it out. You have to show the data somehow. So what chart is that? And how do you make those charts? That is a much more advanced, nuanced view of pie charts that I want to talk about with you today. So I'm going to pull up my spreadsheet that I made for us, and you're going to get to download this too. You can use it as inspiration. You can use it as a template for your real project. And we're going to look at 5 ideas inside this spreadsheet. So we're going to talk about the pies, the pros and cons of those briefly. Then we're going to look at heat tables or heat maps, stacked bars, small multiples bars, my personal favorite in this project, and overlapping area charts, which are kind of like 2 histograms that overlap with a little transparency in there so you can see how the distribution has shifted over time. I usually love those. Those are my go-to charts for a lot of pre and post data like this, especially when it's, when it's ordinal and you want to see how that distribution has shifted. But I don't know. I didn't love them for this one. I didn't love them. So be thinking as we go about which one is your favorite and why. And this is not an exhaustive list. So if you have more ideas beyond this, please comment. Let me know and we can brainstorm together. So let's take a peek at the spreadsheet that I created for us, and I'll show you briefly what the fictional data set looks like and how I created it. And then we'll talk through this cool part, which is all the viz ideas, which I put on one sheet on purpose so that we could see them side by side by side by side and think about the pros and cons a little bit more clearly together. Stick around till the end and I'll show you at a very high level how I created all of this. I'm not going to show you click by click by click exactly what I clicked on, exactly to do all of this. We need a much longer video. We need an hour-long video or a whole course on how to make these. I'm just going to show you at a glance how I set this up. Okay, so first things first, the data set. You're not going to make up a data set for your project. That's like data ethics 101, but I want to show you some of the mouse clicks behind here in case you can adapt this to your project. So the student IDs, that's just an autofill. I typed in the first few. I usually do the first 5 or so, and then I highlight those and I drag them down and they autofill down. I think you've seen autofill before. That's the easy one. And I autofilled down for 2,000 students. The real project that this was inspired by had a couple 100,000. I didn't think we needed to make up a couple 100,000 fake ID numbers, but I also didn't want to make up a puny 25-person data set. So 2,000 felt like a nice round number, to be honest. All right, the schools. I did not manually type those in. I used a concatenation with rand between. So it goes like this. I said equals, double quotes, school, space, double quotes, and rand between, whoops, rand between, I'm pretending we have 10 schools. So it auto generates some school numbers for us. Let me press undo though, because I've already got some school numbers in there. And then the data set, I'm pretending that we surveyed students pre and post, like the fall and again in the spring. And I'm pretending that we gave them 10 different questions. In real life, you'd have your actual question wording. I'm just using Q1, Q2, Q3 as placeholders. And I'm pretending that we have this type of rating scale, 0 to 3, never, seldom, sometimes, often. I see this in a lot of survey work and many other scales, of course, too. I did not type in 0, 1, 2, or 3 for 2,000 students times 20 questions. I used good old rand between, just like I showed you a moment ago. Rand between 0 through 3. You fill in 1 and then you'd double click it, tap, tap, to fill in all the way down, drag it across. Within minutes, you've got a training data set that you can use. Okay, on to the fun stuff though, the viz ideas. So I told you that I put this all on one sheet for us just so we could see side by side by side and get a sense of which ones we think are working for this type of data set or not. So let's talk through this at a high level. And comment and let me know what you think too about the pros and cons of each of these approaches. So the first one that I created was the heat table. I had to make a table anyway. I had to take the raw data and tabulate it. So I just added on the color coding to help myself, honestly, to help myself see some patterns. You can tabulate this in a lot of different ways. Sometimes I use pivot tables. Sometimes I use formulas. I used formulas for these to give me more flexibility in how I created the charts later. It looks like a lot. It's not. It's just count ifs. And should I show you this now? I was going to wait till the end. Oh, it's so cool though. I'm going to show you now. The formula is linked to the drop-down menu. Okay, so the drop-down menu is right here, right? So you select the school name or school number. In real life, you'd have your actual entity names there. And then everything updates, right? So the drop-down menu, which you create that by data validation here. Whoops. You have to click on a cell without data validation. It goes like this. Allow a list. Where is your list? Well, it's right here in the helper cells that I already set up. Great. There's your drop-down list. You can see how quick it is. Let me undo this though. I'm going to not allow a list. I'm going to allow any value. Great. And then my list goes away. So the list is linked to the countifs formula, which has the color coding layered on top. Or later then the pie charts are linked to the formulas and so on. All right. I had to tabulate the data anyway. I added on color coding because it helped me see the highs and the lows. And then a very similar one I did right here was with percentages. The rule of thumb that I learned early on in my career from one of my first bosses was if you have small n's under 100, focus on the n, focus on the number of people. And if you have a big N over 100, like what do we have in school for? We've got what, 184? Okay, so it's over 100. If it's over 100, focus on percentages. That's probably most useful to people. If this school had a small n, I'd probably share this one with the group, but this school had a big N, so the percentages are probably going to be more helpful. Probably in a real life project, I would show the number of respondents along with the percentages, maybe only for a technical audience though. Sometimes non-technical audiences, sometimes that's not as interesting to them as we might think. You've seen heat tables. I don't think I need to talk about heat tables too much more. Oh, except that how you'd share this. Isn't this nice? This could be an email attachment. This could be an appendix of a report. It could be for an in-person meeting. It could be the printout that you talk about at a meeting. You wouldn't share this Excel file with people. This is just for us. This is just between you and me behind the scenes. But the audience would see the printer version. Wouldn't that be nice for a visual appendix of a report? Much more skimmable, right? Than just the regular table would be alone. The color coding is a very intuitive touch. Okay, here are the pies. Let's talk about those. Pie charts are not evil. I do use them sometimes, but I don't use them for this situation. All right, let's zoom over a little bit so we can see. We'll look at these pies. So you can use pies for binary data, yes, no data. This is not binary, it's ordinal. So red X there. You can use pies if you just have 2 slices, maybe 3. These have up to 4 slices, another red X there. You can use pies if you're just looking at 1 pie, but we're not looking at 1 pie. We're looking at pre and post, or fall and spring, times 10 questions. And another tricky thing about these is it was really hard to fit them on a page. I mean, yes, you could shrink them down. Like, yes, you could take all these pies and smush them kind of, not really. You can't really fit too many on a page because let me go back and I'll show you just another headache of these pies. This is not the people working on this project doing anything wrong. This is a headache purely brought on by the pie charts. Look at these labels. They're just such a mess. You'd have to like spread them out or stretch them out. Sometimes that's just a long one. It gets a little cut off. You'd have to delete these leader lines if you can even click on the right spot. It's tricky to click on those. Pie charts are also tricky for this one because look, never had 0%. You can't show zeros in a pie chart. So sometimes these could work, but here they don't. So you know what? Let's actually red X these just so it's really clear on kind of where I stand, what I'm telling you to do and what I'm telling you not to do. Draw. Okay, let's draw. And this is big N, so we're going to X out the numbers. And these pies don't fit any of the guidelines. They're not binary. There's not just 2 slices. There's not just 1 pie. So they don't work in this scenario. My former researcher background wants to love the stacked bars. I used to make so many stacked bars, so many. Let's look at them in print preview so you can see what they'd look like for our audience a little bit more. Oops, not this one, the stacked bars. I wanted to love the stacked bars. I feel like they're the go-to chart for a lot of my colleagues. I think that's a lot. I think this is a lot to look at. It's like too colorful. It's so hard to see. Are there any differences from pre to post, from fall to spring? I don't know. You'd have to stare at it a long time to find anything. This was a really tricky one. And with this specific data set too, you've got these tiny little slivers, but then you've got some bigger slivers, and then you've got a 0. You can't show zeros in pies, and you can't show zeros in stacked bar charts like this. There's no place for the 0 to go. It gets 0 amount of shading. And speaking of shading, another thing I'm not in love with for stacked charts like this is you have to have black text on top of the light segments, but you have to have white text on top of the darker segments. There are official color blindness and color contrast accessibility rules. So you really have to change font colors on these. I don't love switching back and forth from black to white ink. I love consistency whenever possible. So I don't know. I wanted to like these. I just don't. Let's move on to the next idea that I came up with, which it's my favorite. I like this one the most. I'm going to show it to you in print preview mode again too, so you can see what the PDF version. Whoops, you can't click on the chart. I got the chart clicked on. Okay, let's just click on some other cell. This is the print preview mode too, in case you've never seen that before. The white section is what gets printed or PDF'd. The page numbers are just there, just for you and me behind the scenes. It's not a watermark. Those don't get printed or PDF'd. Everything that's in gray is helper cells behind the scenes. Like the drop-down menu doesn't get printed. It's just there, behind the scenes for us. All right, anyway, let's go to the small multiples bars. I really like these. Look at all the white space, especially compared to this one. So busy. Not busy. I like these a lot. These are like histograms, like column charts tilted on their side, so you can see the distribution and how it actually shifts over time. We've got some never seldom ratings being pretty popular and pretty frequent versus some, can you see how it shifts, right? It's like, it's not normal bell curves. It's not symmetrical. It's asymmetrical from pre to post, which is fascinating. And then you can pause and think about like what changed over the course of the school year in this school climate survey. What's going on behind the scenes so that people selected different responses from before. I think that's so interesting, and the charts show this. I also love that the labels are not on top of the charts so that you don't have to worry about that black or white ink situation. I love that there's this white space. I love that you can see the two colors for the two different time periods a little bit better. I really like this one. I try not to have all bar charts all the time, but I think this one works really, really well. I don't know. Maybe I'm overzealous. You comment, you weigh in and let me know. Okay, the last one I tried is the area charts. And I use these a lot. I think I just got so excited about the bar charts in this project. By the time I got to the area charts, I wasn't as excited. I'll show you what these look like in their full view, what the version you'd send to people would look like. It would look something like this. They're overlapping, so you can directly compare the distributions. That is definitely a strength of them. Look, the bar charts are like, they're apart. You have to kind of zig and zag your eyes back and forth a little bit. And not as much eye zigzagging as this one. That's, more inches to zig and zag back and forth. But I don't know. I mean, they're physically on top of one another, which is so nice. I love using transparency for these, so you can see the overlap a little bit more. You can see the grid lines just peeking out behind the scenes so people can estimate the values and how they shifted over time. I love the two different colors for the two different time periods. I don't love how these don't fit so well on a page. I was able to fit 3 here. I wanted to fit more, but let me show you what happens if you try to fit more. You take these charts and you can't quite shrink them, because look what happens. Look, if you made these maybe half the page, the labels, they get twisted diagonal. I can't stand the diagonal ones. Horizontal text is going to be the fastest to read, so I aim for horizontal whenever possible. Honestly, always. I would never have a chart with diagonal. It just takes a little bit longer to read. I'm not a fan. I wanted to love these though. Maybe if there weren't 10 questions, maybe if there were like 3 or 4, there were just a few of these charts, I think these could be really strong. But they need about that much space to have all horizontal text. Okay. You weigh in though, you comment. Let me know what you think of each of these. I'm not going to red X these. I think I'm going to red X the stacked chart. I think so. I just can't see myself using this one, especially when we've got these other 2 options that just so much more clearly show how the responses of the group have shifted over time. Okay. Do you want to see some behind the scenes at a high level? Don't comment, don't at me and say, well, tell me every single button click. We'd need more time than that, okay? You'd have to give me more learning hours of time to be able to show every single button click. But at a glance, as you know already, I set up a drop-down menu, which is just data validation. Whoops. I always forget this step. You have to click on a cell without a drop-down menu first. Then go to Data, Data Validation, select a list from this section of helper cells that you already would have set up in advance. In real life projects, I do a lot of times have sheets that say lookups and drop-downs for myself. And then you have your menu, right, where you can select the school name. In real life, you might have 3 or you might have 300. I think the most I've done on a real project has been maybe like 90-ish for every state, territory, some counties that were part of this one federally funded project. So don't feel like, oh no, I have 10. Am I doing something wrong? No, you're not doing anything wrong. All right, so I set up these and then I count if'd these to count anybody who said never, who also was attending the school in that drop-down menu. This one, let me delete this one from view. Okay. And then these are, let me clear this conditional formatting and show you how to add it. This is just good old conditional formatting. You highlight the cells you want to color code. You go up to conditional formatting. I added a color scale. This is the green-white color scale. Green and white is going to be the one I use most often. Okay, so that's pretty easy. Set up a heat table or a color scale. That's the same for the numbers, the percentages. These are just regular old pie charts. You just, highlight the numbers that you want to feed into the chart. Technically just these. Insert, add a pie. You have to do some formatting, of course, but adding pie charts is pretty easy. This is a stacked bar chart. You know how to make those. You can see it feeds into these cells or feeds from these cells. I highlighted the percentages that should feed into the chart. I went to insert. I selected a stacked. I think I did the 100% stacked. It would have been this one. You have to format it and edit it, of course. It is very, very annoying to get all of these survey wordings to fit in. The formatting gets all weird. So I just typed these into the cells, merged the cells, wrapped the text, and then I'll turn the grid lines back on so you can see them. I very, 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 very carefully, this took, I don't know, maybe 10 seconds of just fiddling with it ever so slightly. Do you see how I carefully aligned it so that the top of this bar aligns to the top of the grid line and so on down? It might be off by about a pixel. Should I nitpick myself here? Maybe. Let me just fix this just a little bit. Let me just pull it down one little, oh, too far. Ah! It's very easy to be a perfectionist with stuff like this. I think that's a little better. I think I fixed it about just a little bit. Okay, that's nice. Maybe I'll just nudge it down with the arrow key, just one. Yep, okay. Accuracy matters. Accuracy matters. I really do care about details like this. All right, the one over here, the small multiples bars, I put in the percentages here. Those are just linked to the other count ifs that I already created. I added a twin column right here. So it's just equals the percentage next door. And then on top of these twin columns, I went back to home, conditional formatting, Anne Emery's favorite button. There's so many goodies in here. And I added solid filled data bars. And then of course I went to manage rules and I edited them. That's it. It's just data bars. And then on the far right, these are just regular old area charts. Okay. They are just, and they are this one. Okay. Make sure you do not use the stacked area chart. That's a common mistake that I see. People stacked will add like this and this stacked on top. They need to have the same baseline. They need to both start at 0. Okay, so use the regular one on the far left that I've got my mouse hovered over right now. Okay, so at a high level, that's what I did. I tabulated the data with count ifs that are from the very beginning linked to a drop-down menu. It's all nice and linked, right? Then I went to page layout. I adjusted the margins, the orientation, the page breaks, the print area. Got it all ready to be, printable. I added the school name. I concatenated a simple little sentence here. Here are the results of the 2021-2022 school climate survey for this school name. So I wouldn't have, who wants to manually type sentences, right? And then, in real life, you just make one of these. You wouldn't make like 5 side by side. You'd pick one winning design and you'd save it as a PDF to share with people. That's it. I can't wait to hear from you. Okay? I'm here for you. Comment. I'll read every single comment, I promise. All right. Bye, folks.